Now we go down to Miami for a story about crooked cops. 3 police officers were busted for a series of crimes, including extortion and identity theft. Vital Frederick, Nathaniel Dauphin, and Malinsky Bazil will all be facing time in jail for their roles in a crime ring that involved using police computers to search through the state of Florida's computerized license plate databases to collect personal information, which was then used to file fraudulent income tax returns to collect hundreds of thousands of dollars. Despite initially confessing, one of the officers, Malinsky Bazil, is now pleading not guilty, and his trial is underway. Another officer, Nathaniel Dauphin, worked with police to uncover the crimes in return for a shorter prison sentence. And the last officer, Vital Frederick, was found guilty last week in a Miami court and faces as much as 22 years in prison. Frederick claims he was forced to go along with the scheme out of fear that his fellow officers may reveal the fact that he was gay. Now, for more on this tangled web of public trust betrayal, I'm joined from Miami by RT's Nicholas O'Donovan. Nicholas, welcome. Tell us more about these officers' crimes.
Hi there, Sam. How you doing? Well, it does look more like a new version, no, a 2.0 version of Miami Vice. It has, for sure, all the ingredients. It has, turned police officers and lies and secrets. But the truth is that all 3 officers have been charged with identity theft, and the one we know the most about is the case of 28-year-old police officer Malinsky Bazil, who has now actually been found guilty of identity theft by a Florida federal court. Bazil's method was quite simple, actually. He had access, obviously, to Florida's computerized driver's license database, where he searched for potential victims, mostly women with common last names such as Smith or Gonzalez, and then he used their personal information to file fraudulent income tax returns. The truth is that it wasn't the most difficult crime in the world to commit. The officer just had to, sit at his desk and retrieve the names and other information from the police database. Then he submitted those false income tax returns and obtained refunds. He had the refunds loaded on prepaid debit cards and withdrew the money from different ATMs within Broward and Miami-Dade counties. Although it seemed at the beginning like a quick and easy way of getting an extra bit of money, Bazil got probably too greedy and allegedly, he made more than $140,000 in 2011 and 2012. In a handwritten confession after he was confronted by police, he said that he spent the money on trips and presents for his family, therefore the money is gone, and he apologized and said that he will pay back any debt. But Bazil joined the Miami Police Department back in 2008, and then for years he was stealing identities for at least 1,000 people, 1,000 different people, and using this data to file the fraudulent income tax returns. He's waiting now for sentencing, but he faces a maximum of 10 years in prison and for the most serious charges, and at least 2 additional years in prison for 3 counts of aggravated identity theft.
So yeah, he made over $130,000, $140,000. That's a lot of money. How did all this come falling down? How is this crime ring busted?
It's a lot of money, and for sure it's more money that he made as a police officer. But how he came down? Well, Bazil, obviously, when he pulled the money, he took precautions, such as wearing a hat pulled down or pulled low, and he tried to, hide his face from the security cameras that we all know are installed inside all the ATMs. But one day, probably he got lazy, and he clearly showed his face for investigators to see. Bazil was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat, a cap actually. When investigators then questioned him at his home, they found the exact hat and shredded debit cards. That is how he actually was captured. But as you mentioned, by that time another officer was involved. This officer was Nathaniel Dauphin, and he was already working with police, and he actually helped them arrest Bazil. Then Bazil also acted as an undercover and helped authorities capture 27-year-old Vital Frederick. Actually, these two, Bazil and Frederick, were close friends. They were buddies. They knew each other from high school. Then they both joined the police back in 2008. And one can only question if it was all something they had been planning for years and they only joined the police to gain access to this information, or was it just a case of plain and simple corruption? Anyways, for sure their friendship ended when Brazil went undercover and helped authorities gather information on Frederick.
That led to the arrest there. You know, we're told to take precautions to make sure our identity doesn't get stolen. Unclear what you're supposed to do when the cops are stealing it straight from police databases. But we're out of time here. RT's Nicholas O'Donovan from our Miami studios. Thank you.